All right, so ready to jump into another deep dive. This time we're tackling a true classic, The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. This book, well, it's really something. It's captivated readers for decades, and today we'll explore why. If you're a fan of literature, trust me, this one's a must-read.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those books that just stays with you. The Good Earth. It's a sweeping epic, a family saga set in rural China in the early 20th century.
Exactly. And Buck doesn't just tell a story. She paints this incredibly vivid picture of China during a period of immense change. So much upheaval, tradition clashing with modernity, and all of that plays out in the lives of our characters.
It's fascinating to see how those larger historical forces impact the personal struggles and triumphs of the individuals we meet in the book. It really adds a whole other layer of depth to the narrative.
Yeah, it's like a microcosm of China's transformation, all playing out in the lives of this one family. And speaking of family, we have to start with Wang Lung, the protagonist. He's a poor farmer, deeply connected to the land. I mean, he represents that universal desire for a better life, that resilience we see in people facing incredible odds.
Wang Lung, he's just so relatable, hardworking, deeply moral. His aspirations are so basic, provide for his family, honor his ancestors. But what makes him so compelling is how he reacts when those aspirations clash with the realities of a changing world.
He's definitely a character you root for, even when he makes questionable choices.
Hmm.
And then there's Olan, his wife. Wow. She's arguably one of the most quietly powerful characters in literature.
Oh, for sure. She's strong, resourceful, just absolutely essential to their success. She even has unbound feet, which was incredibly rare for women in that era.
Right. It's a detail that says so much about her character, her defiance of tradition.
Exactly. It sets her apart and hints at a strength that unfolds throughout the story. She really embodies the unseen strength of women, especially in cultures where their voices are often silenced.
She's the backbone of that family, no question. And they face hardship, a lot of it. Their story is marked by this constant rise and fall of fortunes, much like the social and economic turbulence of China at the time.
It's almost like their lives are a mirror to the nation's destiny. They experience moments of prosperity. For example, they purchase land from the declining House of Wang, showing how quickly fortunes can change.
And then, bam, they're hit by famine, forced to flee to the city.
And eventually they return to the land. It's this cycle that speaks to the enduring pull of their roots.
It's that cyclical journey between hope and despair that really makes you think about the resilience of the human spirit.
Oh, absolutely. And you also see the power of the land, not just as a source of sustenance, but as a symbol of identity, of heritage. It's really powerful stuff.
Really is. And I think it's through these challenges that the themes of fate and resilience really emerge.
Yeah.
It makes you question whether our destinies are predetermined or if we have the power to shape our own paths.
Yeah. Even in the face of what seem like insurmountable obstacles, it's a big question the book grapples with.
It really is this constant dance between individual agency and those larger forces beyond our control.
Mm.
And speaking of control, or maybe lack thereof, let's talk about the family dynamics because things get really interesting when Wang Lung and Olan have children. We're talking 3 sons entering the picture. And as their circumstances change, so do their relationships with their father and each other.
It's fascinating. Each son kind of embodies a different aspect of this changing world of China at the time. You have the scholar, the shrewd businessman, and then the son who's most like his father, drawn to the simplicity and toil of the land.
It's almost like Buck is giving us a glimpse into the different paths China could take at this crucial moment in history.
Right. And it creates this really nuanced exploration of generational differences and those challenges of maintaining unity amid changing values and aspirations. It's something a lot of families can relate to, I think, even today.
Absolutely. It's about those universal struggles of family, ambition, and the search for what truly defines a good life, which is really at the heart of the story, isn't it? That tension between tradition and modernity playing out on a personal level within the family and on a grander scale within Chinese society as a whole.
Yeah, and Buck doesn't shy away from exploring those clashes. And it's in that tension where some of the most profound insights emerge.
Like, how do you hold on to your values when the world around you is changing so rapidly?
Yeah.
How do you balance the desire for progress with the need to preserve what's important from the past?
Exactly. It's about those individual choices, those ripples that go outward, impacting family, community, and even the trajectory of a nation. The Good Earth shows us that personal stories are often intertwined with these grand narratives of history.
It's a powerful reminder of how literature can act as a lens through which we examine those grand narratives, those forces that shape our world. It allows us to step into the shoes of those living through these turbulent times and grapple with universal questions of identity, ambition, and, yeah, the very meaning of the good life. It's pretty incredible.
It is, and it's just the beginning of our deep dive into this incredible book.
There's so much more to unpack, so many layers to explore. But for now, I think we've given our listeners a pretty good taste of what the Good Earth is all about.
Yeah, a taste of the richness and complexity of this story.
And hopefully we've piqued their curiosity enough to make them want to dig in themselves. Because trust me, The Good Earth is one of those books that will stay with you long after you've finished reading it.
Absolutely. It's a story that has something to offer everyone, no matter your background or your reading preferences. It's a true classic for a reason. It really is amazing how Buck uses these very personal stories, like, those intimate family dynamics, to explore these larger societal shifts happening in China at the time. I mean, it's not just a family drama, is it? It's a commentary on a nation trying to figure out, well, its identity in the face of modernization.
Right, exactly. It's like she's holding up this mirror to the tension, that push and pull between the old ways and this new, rapidly changing world. And we see it so clearly in how different Wang Lung's sons are, their personality.
No, yeah, like they almost represent the different paths China could take,
Yeah.
one clinging to tradition, the other embracing all this while the allure of progress and wealth.
It's a fascinating dynamic. So we have Nungen, the eldest son, right? He's raised as a scholar, steeped in all those Confucian classics. But as Wang Lung, his father, gains wealth, Nungen becomes so drawn to status and luxury.
And you kind of see him lose sight of those values that were like instilled in him as a kid. It's almost, well, it feels tragic.
It really does. He's caught between these two worlds, and you feel that internal struggle. It makes you think about, like, the price of progress. Does material wealth always come at the cost of something else? Like, your spiritual grounding, those traditional values.
Big questions. And then there's Lung Wen, the middle son. He's portrayed as this shrewd businessman, right?
Yeah.
Very entrepreneurial. He sees all these opportunities in the changing economy and just jumps on them.
Even if it means going against what his father had in mind for him. He's almost a symbol of that, I don't know, that pragmatic adaptability that often comes with these big shifts.
He sees how the world is changing and knows he needs to adapt to survive, even thrive.
Right. It's like Buck is showing us both sides of progress, the potential for both good and bad, the corruption, and also this incredible innovation.
It's that nuance that really makes her writing so compelling. She doesn't make things simple or try to, say these characters are purely good or evil. They're complex.
They're human,
Exactly. They're flawed, making these tough decisions that reflect the bigger issues of their time. And it's not just the sons who are dealing with all this. We have to talk about the daughters, too. Their stories, well, they give us this glimpse into how hard it was to be a woman in a society that honestly tried to control them.
Yeah, it was a very different world for women back then. So we have the poor fool whose mental disability makes her so incredibly vulnerable in a world that doesn't understand her. And then there's the third daughter whose feet are bound, which, wow, that was such a painful, symbolic practice.
It really was. Their lives are shaped by these forces that are completely beyond their control, their potential. It's stifled by societal expectations. But even within those constraints, those limits, you see these flashes of resilience.
It's this quiet strength that, I don't know, that just speaks volumes about the human spirit. It's incredible.
It really is. Their stories also show just how complex family relationships can be, all the sacrifices that women made for their families. And then there's Lotus, Wang Lung's concubine. Her presence adds a whole other layer of tension, right?
Definitely. Because we see Wang Lung's flaws, that even with his strong morals, he can be tempted.
It's human.
It is. She represents this allure, this pleasure, this escape, which is such a stark contrast to Olan. Olan's practical, stoic. It's almost like Lotus embodies these desires that traditional society tried so hard to, to suppress. And those desires, well, they come out even stronger with wealth and status.
And it's so interesting to see how Olan reacts to Lotus. She's this silent powerhouse, so much strength under the surface. Her response to her husband's infidelity is just heartbreaking, but so powerful at the same time.
Right. There's so much about her. She understands how complicated human nature can be, especially in a patriarchal society.
She can't control her husband, but she can control how she responds to the situation. It's amazing. She keeps her dignity, her place in the family. There's this quiet strength in her restraint.
It speaks volumes about her character.
Absolutely. And as Wang Lung gets older and his sons become men, those family bonds, well, they're put to the test. The sons, they clash, each with their own ambitions and desires. Wang Lung, he struggles to keep that unity, that togetherness.
Another classic tale, right? This generational conflict that, well, it's magnified by everything changing in China at the time. It's like their family becomes a microcosm of the entire nation,
Right.
trying to figure out how to balance tradition and this push for modernity. You can feel the old world fading, but there's still this longing to hold on to it, even while the new world is calling.
It makes you wonder, what does progress really mean? What do we lose when we focus on ambition? What happens to those values that used to define us, as families, communities, as a nation, when everything around us is changing? Lots to think about.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think that's why The Good Earth is such an enduring book. It doesn't give us easy answers. It forces us to ask those tough questions, to examine our own values, and to really consider how complex we are as people, both personally and, on a societal level.
And it's relevant. Even today, all these years later, those themes of family, ambition, and the allure and the danger of progress, they still resonate in our world.
They do. It's a reminder that, yeah, the details of our lives might change, but the fundamental questions, the ones we wrestle with, well, they stay the same. The Good Earth, it lets us explore those questions, through this family, living through really extraordinary times. And it shows us truths about humanity, things that go beyond any specific time or place. We've talked a lot about the characters and the themes and all that, but I think we should talk about how Buck actually brings this world to life. Her writing, it's both beautiful and kind of stark. It really captures what rural China was like. You feel like you're there.
Oh, totally. The way she describes the land, the seasons changing, just everyday life, it's so vivid. It's like you're transported back in time.
You can practically smell a harvest, feel the soil, hear the sounds of, like, the silk robes in the House of Huang. It's amazing. And that level of detail, that's what makes the story so powerful, even if, our lives are totally different from the characters.
Right. And she doesn't shy away from the hard stuff either. Like, her description of the famine, it's brutal. But it's also incredibly moving how she portrays human suffering and that resilience.
It's real. It's not
Yeah.
sugar-coated. It's what makes Buck such a great writer. She doesn't avoid the tough parts of life, but she also finds those moments of beauty, even in the midst of, all the hardship. It's that balance that makes The Good Earth so timeless, so universal.
Exactly. It reminds us that no matter how tough things get, there's still that strength, that dignity in us as humans. Like, it can't be taken away.
It's about finding those little bits of hope, those connections to family, to the land, those simple things that help us get through.
Finding meaning, even when things are falling apart around you, it's powerful stuff. And I think that's what makes The Good Earth, in the end, a hopeful book.
Yeah, even with all the hardship, there's this hope. It's about reminding us that even when things change, when traditions are challenged, we have this ability, this resilience to adapt, to create a new balance.
It leaves you with a lot to think about. What does it mean to be connected to the land? How do we deal with tradition versus, all the modern stuff? What makes a good life?
The big questions. And The Good Earth, well, it gives us a way to think about them, a way that feels relevant, even now.
Totally. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'd encourage everyone, pick up a copy of the book, see what speaks to you. What does Wang Lung's journey teach you? Do you see any connections between his struggles and what we're facing today?
It's a book that stays with you, makes you think, makes you talk about it. And that's what great literature does, right? It gets those conversations going, makes us challenge our own perspectives. And it connects us to those shared human experiences that bind us all together.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So thanks for joining us on this journey into The Good Earth. We hope you've learned a thing or two and that it inspires you to, to maybe explore some other great books out there. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep reading.